Hey guys, my name's Brandon. I'm here with Megan, Joey, and Patrick, and we're doing this week's Weekly Reflections, and we're coming to you from a local sober living, Stone Valley Recovery, who've been gracious enough to allow us to use their facilities, and we're grateful for that. A necessary pruning. We know that the pains of drinking had to come before sobriety, and emotional turmoil before serenity. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 94. I love spending time in my garden feeding and pruning my beautiful flowers. One day, as I was busily snipping away, a neighbor stopped by. She commented, "Oh, your plants are so beautiful. It seems such a shame to cut them back," I replied. I know how you feel, but the excess must be removed so they can grow stronger and healthier. Later, I thought that perhaps my plants feel pain, but God and I know it's part of the plan, and I've seen the results. I was quickly reminded of my precious AA program and how we all grow through pain. I asked God to prune me when it's time so I can grow.
We grow through pain. Yeah, that's true for me. And I'm trying to work on it not getting to such an intense level of pain before I choose to grow today or change. I've been told that God removes for you what is not necessary in your life. And I believe that to be true, because whether or not I'm clinging on to something that is terrible for me, God's going to remove it one way or the other. It's just how much pain do I want to go through before I let go, you know? I like the little metaphor of gardening and pruning back these flowers. It seems so like soft and gentle and very have this whole garden nature picture. It doesn't feel that way for me. It feels not nearly as beautiful, and it just is lacking in that feature. I wouldn't compare mine to a garden unless it's there are a lot of thorns and it's very dirty and it's dark and I can't see anything. I mean, like my garden needs work. Okay, I'm still new enough, you know, just barely over a year and a half into sober game winning at sober game. And I go through a lot of emotional turmoil still on a regular. I don't always think before I act, and I don't always call my sponsor before I speak, and I don't always read my big book before I have conversations, and I don't always talk to God and bring God into it before I decide whether or not someone is healthy in my life, or before I set a boundary, or before I make any major life decisions. And with doing that, I experience a lot of pain. And today, without being loaded, when I stop drinking and using, the pain becomes emotional pain. And so a lot of times there's like this cap on how much can I tolerate, how much can I actually handle before it blows. And so now the focus for me is more on what's termed emotional sobriety. It's life now without drinking and without drug use, and how do I grow, and how do I mature, and how do I become the best sober person that I can be. And dude, I wish it was an award-winning garden right now. It still needs a lot of pruning, and I need help for that, because this is not for me. This is not something I can do on my own. I'm not equipped. I need advice. I need help. I need fellowship. I need my sponsor. I need the advice of the people that have come before me and how they got through it and how they're happy today. And so right now, yeah, I do. I need some help with that trimming and the pruning. Mm-hmm. So I rely on people just like you know, to help get me through the rough times.
Yeah. This is a topic that inspires me most in recovery, in sobriety, in my walk of sobriety. Like, you know, I don't get me wrong, I love going in somewhere and hearing people share their experience about how great life is and all this stuff and how good things are for them, and I love that. But I also love when like it gets real and raw and like more of like an intimate feeling of like, you know, but this is also what I'm walking through in recovery, you know, because it's not, you know, life happens. You know, life happens without drugs and alcohol. Life will continue to happen. Human beings will continue to make mistakes. And the reality is like, we're going to have to walk through life. We're going to have to walk through life. And it's funny that you say that you're new to sobriety. I'm new to sobriety, and I have 4 years sober. You know what I mean? I have 4 years sober, and I still face times where I'll make that garden look real nice, and then I'll stomp through everything that all the seeds planted. You know what I mean? Just being in bondage yourself, acting out in my old ways, whatever. You know, I'll be quick to mess that garden up, and that's the thing. You know what I mean? I've realized throughout my time of being sober, my pain tolerance has gotten lower and lower and lower and lower to where I'm like, all right, man, like I can no longer do this. I don't want to feel this way. It's time to rely on God and get to work. You know, get to work, and it's always a practice thing, you know, and it's never something that goes away in a day. It's always something that needs to be worked on. There's always something that needs to be worked on in my life because, I don't know, I guess that's just how I operate. But I love this topic, and you know what, like, to be honest with you, like, I'm inspired by those who speak more of, like, what's really going on. You know what I mean? What's really going on, not trying to like, shed like shade over the light of what people want to hear and stuff like that. But, you know, I'm inspired by that. I get more out of that because I'm like, yeah, like that's where I'm at. Because I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. I'm very flawed. And I make a lot of poor life decisions sometimes that I see results from, you know what I mean, that I have to walk through. And it just goes to show that the solution never dies. You know what I mean? I've gotten so much places in my sobriety where I had to get back to the basics, start doing basic stuff, you know, contact my sponsor on the daily, you know, put pen to paper, whatever is suggested to me. It's just basic stuff of like how it first started. And I've hit places in my recovery where I felt like a newcomer, man. And that's, you know what? It's exactly where I needed to be at. Because if I think I got this, I wouldn't feel that way. You know what I mean? I'd feel like, oh no, I got this. It's all good. No, it's not all good. I like to get to those places where I'm like, no, I'm new again. You know, I'm new again. I'm facing some stuff that's new to me because emotional sobriety, when I hear emotional sobriety, it almost makes me cringe because I'm like, ugh. Like my second year was all emotional sobriety, you know what I mean? Because I just got right, you know, after I got my year, I just got right. Like my mind was finally cleared up from all the fog, from everything, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm feeling some stuff that I'm not used to. I'm new to this all, and it'll always be a new experience, and that's what I love about this, one day at a time.
You know, I'm so glad that you tied in this emotional sobriety to this topic and you used that word. I think when I first came in here, I listened to speakers that, you know, talked about how rough their life was at 10 years sober, or, you know, even, you know, a little less time than that. I don't think I would have stayed. I would have been like, oh, well, fuck that. I'm going to go ahead and check out now. But I didn't. I was strategically placed in the meetings, and the speakers that were there, God placed there so that I could hear how wonderful their life was. But now I'm grateful to sit under speakers who are real and honest, like you were saying, about how tough life can get, because I see it there, and I've experienced a few things. Haven't been around that long, but I've been around long enough to know that life still happens, and we deal with it as it goes, as it comes. And then that emotional sobriety, it's funny, there's times where I hear people with 4 or 5 months talking about working on their emotional sobriety, and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, you don't even know how to stay sober yet. Let's tackle staying sober first and then work on your emotional sobriety. Because I'm just now getting to a point where I'm like, okay, it's time for me to work on some emotional sobriety. So I'm having to step into other fellowships, you know, that are sister to us. That work on those emotional, teach us how to work the 12 steps on our emotions, Coda, Al-Anon, things such as that, you know, which I advocate 100%. Because they do help us get to the core. Because like the book tells us, you take away the drugs and alcohol, and what's left? All your problems are still there. You know, they don't go away. Alcohol was but a symptom, is what the book tells us. So what's the root cause? The root cause is that we don't know how to deal with life. We're maladjusted to life. So again, you take away the drugs and alcohol, I'm still maladjusted to life. And I don't know what to do sometimes. So I'm, again, super grateful that God has placed me around just the right people at just the right time and just the right place in order for me to work on those things, because sometimes it's really painful. It's really, really painful, but, you know, I have to still just keep doing this thing. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I'm still given the motivation to, not only the motivation, but the clarity to see things the way that they are today. And it doesn't have to be roses, and it doesn't have to, you know, it doesn't have to be this beautiful bed of roses that just smells really pretty. And, you know, sometimes my garden has worms all in it that are just destroying things. and, you know, and I allow that to happen sometimes, and I allow it to fester, and I allow it, you know, to get bad. But then I'm like, okay, this is really bad, and I just go and I get back to those basics. You know, and I think that's very important, because I think that we try to look for these, you know, like, I don't know, complicated solutions to these problems sometimes, and it's not that complicated. I just got to put pen to paper sometimes, write out a 4-step every now and again, you know, and just take that a self-appraisal and go from there and listen to the people that came before me.
I do know the pain of how it was before and the pain that I can go through now. And you know, we're talking about emotional sobriety and maintenance steps. 10, 11, and 12, trust God, clean house, help others, what have you. But when meetings, I will introduce myself as a grateful, recovered alcoholic. In the past tense, only because it says it in the book that way, and I've recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. But I'm not grateful because I've recovered. I'm grateful because I was an alcoholic. I'm grateful for the pain, because without it, I didn't end up finding the true purpose. And I learned so much from that. And my only ability to help people was having had those experiences before I got sober. That's how I'm able to help people. Like you got to be able to relate at some point to my story that you might think that I could. Or how did you do it? To get that question asked to you, how did you do it? So that's why I'm grateful for my issues in the past, and knowing full well that that is what can keep me going today. Is any issue, the pain that I come with just in sobriety, I end up learning from those things. And 2 months down the line, or a year later, someone will come to me, and I can relate that piece out of my sobriety to them. And I can relate to them, oh, this is how I made it through it without going back out, without finding a poor coping mechanism, whether that was drugs or alcohol or whatever else can take my mind off of what I'm feeling. You know, we say a lot. You'll hear it in the rooms. You'll hear me say it. This program can work for anybody. I've heard you guys all say it. This program could work for everybody, drugs or alcohol aside. If you just supplant, in my eyes, if you were to just, instead of alcohol, say control or other people. You know, I'm powerless over other people, and my life can be unmanageable when I try to control them, right? Well, that's what I have to do today. Because, you know, as long as the alcohol doesn't enter my body now, as long as the drug doesn't enter my body now, I'm not powerless over it at the moment. I will be, certainly will be, but I am powerless over what I'm trying to control. I am powerless over other people's reaction to me. You know, I can control, and it's the serenity prayer, but I can only control my own perception. And I have to have the courage to do so. And the wisdom to know the difference is just said. I mean, we all know that that's the case, that the control is really, for me, it was the crux of addiction, was to be able to control at least how I feel, because I can control nothing else. So beyond that, now, each and every pain, and while I'm in it certainly don't remind myself of it the way I'm saying it right now. It doesn't seem or sound this way. But after you get through it and you cope with it in an effective, healthy way, I understand what it was for. And I don't know who it's going to help, but I'm positive, and I have faith that somebody down the line in my life is going to use this pain to help them recover from whatever the hell it might be.
It's really good. Thank you guys for joining us today, as always. And thank you guys as well. Don't know if you heard something that you relate to or strikes a chord with you, but be sure to check us out at detox2rehab.com. There's a list of resources there, and if you're struggling and need help, there's an addiction specialist waiting to talk to you right now. The number is on that website. And you can always join us next week, because we'll be here for more fun stuff.